the first thing is that particularly for those of you who are alumni, we have our largest group of alumni this year that we've ever had. Close to half of our riders are alumni. Anyway, we're the first night we're not going to be in Ashkelon. The hotel on the beach that we've come to enjoy had a serious fire and is closed. So we will be staying in Ashdod, which is about 10 or 15 kilometers north of Ashkelon. As a result of that, our ride will end on the first day at a place called Negba, and we'll have to bus into Ashdod because the ride into Ashdod is really not fun and not recommended. The other days we're using pretty much the same route that we've been using for the last few years. The other significant change is that for those who do the Chalutzim route, the long route, and we usually go on Friday to a place called Nitzana, which is in the desert, kind of in the middle of nowhere. The guest house in Nitzana is closed. It's also a school, generally for troubled kids. The school has expanded and taken over the guest house. We're going to ride to Yerucham, which is a little bit in the other direction, and then bus Friday morning from Yerucham to Nitzana and still be able to ride, or at least the plan is at this point, if the Army doesn't change their mind, to ride on the Egyptian border road as we usually do. We have ride with GPS files that show the routes that are on the website. Some things are changing slightly. So while you're welcome to go look at them, we recommend that you wait until a couple of days before the ride to actually download them because they may keep changing. There's also, you'll get more information on this over the next couple of weeks, but there's been a new cycling tunnel opened in Jerusalem. Some of you may have seen, there was an article in the Jerusalem Post about it. It's 2 kilometers long, and it's not far from where our hotels are and where we set up the bikes. So we're probably going to try and set up a training ride that will go from the hotel to the tunnel, kind of back and forth on Tuesday afternoon. So we will have our regular training rides, which are short 10 or 15-minute rides. That's probably more like an hour ride, which will happen sometime on Tuesday afternoon in an organized fashion. It's an old water tunnel that's been converted to a biking tunnel. We are using the same sort of 3 hotels that we used in 2019, which are all within walking distance of each other in Jerusalem. You'll get instructions as to exactly where the bikes will be set up. And like last year, the Chalutzim are starting at Yad Kennedy, and the Tzofim and the Shomrim are starting at a place called Speedy Kef. Everyone has to get on a bus in the morning to bike out to those. It's gotten too dangerous to ride out of Jerusalem in traffic. Anybody have any questions about the route or about biking or about bikes?
Howie, quick question for you. How do we know which hotel or where to go on Tuesday?
Sure. And if I can ask people, when you ask a question for the first time, introduce yourself and just say, a sentence about you, whatever you want to say. So go ahead, Peter.
Sure. Peter Wexler did the ride in 2019, I think. So really looking forward to this, and hopefully I can get the rest of the training in between now and then.
Yeah, the key registration desk when you get there is going to be at the Ramada, correct?
Yeah,
Ilana, at the Ramada Hotel, which is one of the 3 hotels. And from there is when you'll find out just which hotel you're in and get all the information that you need.
yeah. The hotels are connected. So, you know, you could show up at the Ramada and you might have to go to the other tower of the hotel, but they're basically the same.
But you'll be sending out information on at least the first place to go on Tuesday.
You should,
Right. Sorry.
everyone should go to check in at the Ramada, and you'll get your room assignments from there. We don't send them out in advance because for all kinds of reasons, they can change last minute.
Great, thank you.
Howie, I'm seeing another route question. It says, where do chalutzim start on day 2 in Ashdod?
Everybody on day 2, on day 1, we stop at a place called Negba, which we haven't been to the last few years, but those of you who were there and in earlier years, we used to stop there a lot. And we have to bus back out to Negba. The bikes will stay there overnight, and all the groups will start from there on Thursday morning.
Thank you. Any more route questions before we move on?
The rental bikes don't have Garmin mounts. If you have a Garmin and you want to bring it, bring a mount with you.
And I'd broaden that to say if you have any accessories that you want to put on the bike, our mechanics are totally happy installing them, but bring the accessory. Don't assume it'll be there. So at a minimum for people who use clips, that means, you know, bring your pedals. If you have a saddle you're used to, bring the saddle. If you have any bike computer or other equipment that you like to be on your bike, bring it. The mechanics are happy to install it and then happy to uninstall it at the end of the ride.
Another important issue that you might want to mention is that Alana told me that the mechanics will not have torque wrenches. So if you have anything carbon, you might want to bring your own torque wrench, although I'll have one with me if anybody doesn't bring one.
Yeah,
I have a bike question. Could I go ahead and ask it?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Judy Gertler from Wellesley, Massachusetts. This is my first time on the Israel ride. I am renting a bike, and Alana sent out an email last week asking if we were interested in getting a carbon bike. I am interested, and what's the status of that?
I could take this. So yes, our bike vendor in Israel told us that he has some carbon bikes available. We're not sure what make, what model yet, so I don't have that information to give you. And we don't even know exactly what sizes he has. So more information to come, but there may be carbon bikes available for those interested.
Okay, thank you.
I don't have more information. It's just, yeah, it's been challenging to communicate.
I saw a question. There are a water bottle cage on all the rental bikes.
Okay, it seems like we're on a bike trend, so let's answer all the bike questions. What's the policy on e-bikes, Howie?
Where we have a number of people who are going to be using e-bikes. It's a handful, I think 3, 4, 5, 6 people. They're riding with the Shomrim, and we'll see how it goes. And they've promised not to say anything as they pass people up the hills.
Hi, this is Roger Macklis from Westport, Connecticut. It's my first time doing the ride. A couple of questions in terms of the 3 different levels of riding. By when do you need to commit to the levels? Is there a deadline on that, or how does that work?
We try to be as flexible as we can. We asked you to tell us in advance where you think you want to be. On the first day, there are a lot of people who aren't sure what level is right for them or appropriate for them. So we encourage you on the first day to go to the more difficult group. So if you're not sure between the Chalutzim and the Tzofim, try the Chalutzim. And same, if you're not sure between the Tzofim and the Shomrim, try the Shomrim. You'll get a feel during the day for if that's appropriate for you or not. If you want to, at the end of the first day, we have to know what you're planning to ride, because the group stays at different places Thursday night. So Thursday you ride to a place where you're going to stay over, and then you ride from there on Friday. So you have the opportunity to change your mind Wednesday. After the briefing, everyone has to sort of re-sign up and recommit to what group they're doing, so we can get the housing straight. And then you're sort of committed for 2 days of what you're doing, and then Sunday and Monday is pretty flexible as to what you do. You'll get more information on that over the weekend.
I see that John Harris Shapiro has his hand up.
Yeah, and I totally forgot my question. Oh, I know what it was. If when I registered, I said I'd bring my own bike. If I change my mind and want to rent, how late can I tell you, or is it already too late?
For road bikes, it's a little bit too late. There's a shortage in Israel at the time of the ride. I think there's a couple different rides going on at the same time. We do have hybrid left, if you feel comfortable riding on hybrid.
I'll bring my bike.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. Okay, Jennifer Markowitz.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Markowitz, New York City, first time rider. The question
Welcome.
is, I know that, thank you, that, we have to make the decision about the Nitzana ride, because of the different places that we stay. Is there like a speed that you have to keep to make it appropriate? Like if you can do it, but I don't know what the support system is and whether that's an issue in terms of consideration.
You have to be able to keep up to a certain extent. Of course, if you're willing to sit in a sag wagon and be pushed forward when you don't keep up, then that's a little better. We tell people who are interested in trying to do that should either try chalutzim on the first day, or make sure if you can be at the front of the pack of the tzofim and feel comfortable staying at the front of the pack of the tzofim, that also should put you in pretty good shape.
I hear that. Does that translate just in terms of into a certain speed, like, do we need to do 15 miles an hour, 13 miles an hour, 10? Yeah. Yeah.
The way I tried to define it over the years, and it's for people who are comfortable riding in kind of the rolling hills that we typically ride in the Northeast at an average pace of 15 to 17 miles an hour. Those are the people who fit for the chalutzim. If you're comfortable at a pace of 12 to 15 miles an hour, again, this is over 30 miles or 40 miles of rolling hills, then you're probably more comfortable with the tzofim. And the front of the tzofim, can generally handle that day on Friday, which is a beautiful day. And the Shomrim pace we talk about more is an average of 10 to 12 miles an hour.
Jennifer, I'm sorry. Just like one more question on this, is because I understand in general, but like if I wanted to challenge myself, my idea is to be in the Tzofim, but to sort of go up to the Chalutzim for Nitzana, but I don't keep that pace. So I don't want to, I don't mind the sag wagon, but I don't want to necessarily overcommit or create a problem for.
Let's talk offline.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, sorry about that.
And for Jennifer and anybody else, I'd add, all the routes are beautiful on Friday, but the Nitzana route is really special. So what I hear you is struggling with, same thing I struggle with most every time I'm on the ride, which is if you're sort of on the cusp if you think you can push yourself to be on that route for the day, it's worth it. It's not worth killing yourself for. If you're uncomfortable with the idea that you might end up being sagged, it's not worth it for that. But if you can get over those things, it's a really special part of the route. So worth a little bit of extra push if you can do it.
Howie, this is Neil Leifer. Some of this is influenced by the police. In 2018, they were crazy and they insisted that our group stay together. And in 2019, we were allowed to break up into groups, and people who could finish the ride were able to finish the ride. We all thought the 2018 rule was frankly bullshit, but that was the police. So what's the policy this year? Any idea?
So I think the police policy doesn't change. The policemen and women change, and the way they interpret and implement the policy changes, right?
Okay.
So we really never know what we're going to get.
Okay.
And we're trying to. There's actually a meeting, I believe it's tomorrow, with the police to go over the various routes, get permissions, and talk it through. We try and work with them to get them to help us as compared to hinder us. But the police is not a monolith. It's a bunch of individual police people who each have their own interpretation of the rules.
Okay. Okay.
Hopefully we get more of the 2019 group.
It is on the first day where we have the most interaction with traffic. The police tend to be much more active in keeping us together and stopping us and doing things that make things not as enjoyable as they could be. What I can guarantee you is that the first day will be the worst day from a police perspective and from those perspectives, and it will get easier and looser as the days go on.
I see that Lawrence has his hand up. Lawrence, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, my name is Larry Abrams. This is up from Long Island, New York. This is the first time for me for this riding. I'm just curious about the schedule of the day. So, I mean, what time do we typically get up? What time do we typically get going? What time do we finish the ride? I'm just kind of curious about that.
The schedule varies a little bit day by day. We get on the road or get up and out anywhere from 6:30 to 8 o'clock, depending upon where we are and what's happening. It gets that we still will be, we're right past when they turn the clocks, so that it gets dark about 4 o'clock, 4:15. So we're off the road by 3:30 or 3:45, and everybody gets picked up. So some years we're on each side of the clock changing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Carroll, or sorry, David, do you want to say something?
I noticed that Asher had a question, and it's sort of route related because it's gels and supplements at the rest stops. First of all, for everybody, the rest stops are generally every figure 15 to 20 miles, often halfway between the rest stops. There might be a pit stop. In broad terms, think of rest stop as you have to stop, pit stop as you can stop. You won't have to stop unless for some reason the lead rider wants people to stop. All of the stops are stocked with refreshments, water, energy drinks, usually various nutritional stuff. So you don't need to bring your own. On the other hand, if there's something that you're just used to having as your supplement when you ride a bike, either be it an energy bar, an energy gel, whatever, you should bring that one, because there's a good chance that that's not the same one as the one that we have in Israel. But if it's not a particular one that you're used to, everything is very well stocked. The next hand raised. I'm sorry.
Feel free to unmute yourselves.
Hi, Elizabeth and Gerald Cohen were first-time riders from New Jersey and North Carolina, both, or a combination. Two questions. So you were talking about the special route, and I'm sorry,
Nitzana?
In Nitzana, and is that only for chalutzim? Is that what's the
ride is it's a difficult ride. It's quite hilly, and so it's a chalutzim ride. Because it's an attractive ride, we encourage actually people who are either on the strong side of the Tzofim, who can probably keep up and do it. But if you're much behind that, you may end up spending a lot of time in a sag wagon.
And you have to commit though for the 2 days to ride with chalutzim, because that's
so on the good question. On the Thursday, you have an opportunity actually to ride with the Tzofim on Thursday, and then at the end of the day get jumped by bus to meet the chalutzim, and do that chalutzim ride on Friday. So you don't have to keep up with them or do the distance on both days.
Got it. And then the second question, so you mentioned downloading GPS routes. Does that mean we should have a GPS with a computer with us, or?
You don't have to. A lot of people are used to riding with them anyway. We do have cue sheets, which used to be the only way that you knew how to get around. And that you can have with you. So it's, if you're not used to riding with that and you don't have one, I wouldn't go out and buy one special for this. No. If you have one on your bike and you're used to using it, or you can also just have it on your phone for when you need it. It's probably, if you're used to using it, it's good. If you're going to fumble around and take your eyes off the road because you don't know how to do it, it's probably dangerous. Okay. In general, you can just follow the crowd.
Yeah, I think that last point's the important one. You don't actually need it. You will, for the most part, always be inside of other riders. If you ever find yourself, the rare situation that you're not inside of other riders and you come to a turn, you're not sure what to do, our advice would be you wait until someone gets there who is sure what to do. But there's precious few places throughout the entire ride where that could happen.
Yeah, you won't be last for the new riders. David's advice to stop, which I did not heed one year, but David's advice to stop is a good one, because you're never last. There is a sweep rider that will come get you. So just hit an intersection, pause, enjoy the sunshine, and somebody will catch up with you and tell you what to do.
Yep. Andy, I think you had your hand up.
Yeah. This is Andy White. I live in the Boston area. I was bar mitzvahed in Israel after the 6-day war, and this is my first time back.
Wow.
I have
changed a bit.
Yeah, exactly. Less hair. I have two questions. One is, how do you get from the airport to the hotel? I land on the 31st, so I'm going to need a room for that one night before the check-in. And I sent an email. I think somebody sent an email out and gave us a name of a woman named Emily who can arrange rooms. Is that correct? I emailed her on Saturday about a room on the 31st, evening of the 31st, and I haven't heard back from her yet. So I don't know if anybody else has heard back from her or who has made other arrangements for rooms.
I probably can help you with that. I was in contact. This is Warren Farb. I'm a veteran from 2006. I contacted her and she was on vacation and took a long time to get back, but she finally, she will get back to you. But the interesting thing I found is that she will arrange the room for you at the Jerusalem hotel for, I think it was $320 or so. But while I was waiting for her to get back to me, I went on to hotels.com and got the same room for $260. So you might just put that in your decision function.
The hotel booking that we do with Emily includes dinner and breakfast. So like a nice buffet dinner. And also it'll ensure that you keep the same room. So if Warren, it seems like you booked independently, so you might have to change rooms on the 31st to the 1st.
Yeah, well, she said I'm definitely in the same hotel.
Yeah.
I get breakfast, but I guess I'll have to pay for my own dinner.
Okay.
And if I have to check, when I check in, I'll tell them what I'm doing, and 50-50 chance I might get the same room, maybe not.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was hoping for, the same room, so you don't have to change. I don't have to change rooms once I start. My other question.
In the same hotel, it's not a big deal.
Yeah, that's true. My other question was, I'm doing the post-ride trip, the trip to Jordan, and I understand that we check out at the hotel in Eliot on the 8th, but I don't leave till the 9th. So I'm going to need a room. I assume I book a room through her. Is that correct? After that, is that correct?
I think all the trips, the Petra trips, leave on the 8th. They're designed for our group. So are you doing the 1 day or the 2-day Petra trip?
The 2-day. I have a flight back on the 9th.
On the 9th. So yeah, you'll be leaving for Petra on the 8th. Like when you check out of the Eilat hotel, you'll get transported to the border with Jordan and have your 1-night trip in Jordan, and then you'll get brought back to Israel on November 9th.
Just make sure that a lot of the flights from Israel that say the 9th started about midnight at the end of the 8th. So are you flying later in the day on the 9th? Or are you flying at like that's at 1 a.m. on
yeah, I think there's a 6 o'clock
6 p.m.
Yeah, 6 p.m. I have an 11:15 flight p.m. on the 9th back to the States.
11:50 p.m. Okay.
11:15. So I figured if I leave Eliot at 6, I'll have plenty of time to catch that.
Yeah, I think you'll have time to catch your flight on a 6 p.m. Domestic flight from Eilat to Ben Gurion, but I'm taking notes and I'll email you just to make sure you have everything in writing.
Great, thank you.
Sure. There were a few questions I saw in the chat that we kind of skipped over and they were up top, so I'll just go back to them. What advanced arrangements do I need to make with El Al to bring my pack bike on board the plane? Anyone?
Yeah. I put an answer in the chat, and this would be equally true if you're bringing a bike, regardless of airline. Let the airline know in advance. If you just show up at the airport with a bike, in all likelihood, they'll still accept it. It's luggage, but they do ask that they know in advance, and that technically gives them the right not to accept it. Also, if you let them know in advance and you're on an airline where there's a charge for the bike, it sometimes is less expensive when you're paying it in advance instead of paying at the airport. So another reason to let them know in advance. One word of advice, which I did see someone shared in the chat, when you pack your bike for transport, be mindful that pretty much every single bike gets opened by TSA, every single bike case. You're not there when it's opened. Anything that's loose in the case may not still be in the case when it gets closed back up, not because they're thieves, just because they're not terribly careful all the time. So if you have anything in the case, small parts, your pedals, etc., have them in a bag that you leave literally tied to the bike so that it can't fall out of the case when the case gets opened. And if you're bringing a bike, it usually doesn't actually create an additional delay on departure from the United States, but like I said, lots of them do get opened, so it's a good idea to show up at the earlier end of check-in.
Do you have any opinion about the bike fees, the charges?
They all vary, and also it turns out that from airline to airline, for some ticket classes, they're actually today, they weren't doing this a couple of years ago, but today they're actually treating the bike as one of your pieces of luggage. So they're just charging whatever they would charge for that ticket class for an extra piece of luggage. So rather than share information that could easily turn out to be incorrect for anybody, I'd suggest just check with your airline.
That is
We've also
correct.
had cases where the airline, you check with the airline, they say X, and you get to the airport and they say Y. So that's the world we live in.
Make sure the dimensions of the bike box are within the prescribed dimensions and the airlines.
Yes.
Acceptance of the box.
And the weight.
It's generally treated as oversized luggage. A standard bike box is treated as oversized luggage, which means it goes through a different process with the airline. It's good to get there earlier than you normally would with a piece of oversized luggage, and to check out the dimensions of the oversized luggage. But it's generally pretty good for a standard bike box.
Yeah, weight too. So don't load up your box with heavy things, because there is a weight limit.
Yeah. And all these things are published on each airline site. I think for the size and weight limits, it's probably about the same for every airline, but you should check with your airline rather than go with what we say. One other piece of advice, this actually I'd share with anybody, but definitely if you're bringing a bike, don't pack your cycling gear for the first day with the bike. I would suggest you bring it as carry-on, because on occasion, the bikes have been known to take a different route to Israel than your plane. And they might, when that happens, they don't always arrive before the ride starts. So we usually are able to work out a bike for you to use until your bike shows up. But if you don't have your helmet, don't have your shoes, don't have everything else, it can be very difficult. So it's easier if you just bring that in your carry-on.
Real quick, I'm actually in the airport baggage industry. That's the work I do. So just for everyone's information, do not pack anything in the box except for your bike and the padding for it. If you start putting a bunch of other stuff in there, it's no longer a bike box, and they're going to charge you differently for it, as well as TSA is going to lose stuff. Just put the bike in there and nothing else, just the bike and the padding. Everything else put in your suitcase, because TSA is going to mess it up, and the airline is going to probably charge you extra if it weighs more, because the bike box shouldn't weigh any more than 25 pounds, because your bike shouldn't be any more than that.
Asher,
excellent advice.
Are you saying that the pedals don't count as part of the bike?
I wouldn't put the pedals in there, because you have to take the pedals off to put the bike inside of any case.
I totally disagree with that. I've never heard. I've done this ride a dozen times. Disassemble your bike. All your bike parts can go in there. Your helmet can go in there, and your pedals should definitely go in there. And I've never ever seen a problem. And I've flown on 3 different airlines, so I think that's and just make sure you take the air out of your tire.
My experience is the same as Neil's.
Yeah, we've never had a problem with the pedals and
never had trouble with pedals, water bottles, helmet, anything associated with.
I think the advice to keep it to the parts that belong to the bike is a good idea.
Yeah.
I see that Eric Pasternak has had his hand raised patiently. So, Eric.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry about that. It's a totally different subject, and I apologize. I was a little late getting in, so it may have been covered. But just wondering about carrying water on the bike between pit stops. 20 miles can be a long time, and wondering if the bikes that we rent, do they have water bottle holders, or do we have to provide those too?
They have at least one water bottle holder. Some have 2. But they all have at least one.
And
Okay,
I would
great.
mention a lot of riders, you might have noticed in some of the ride photos, a lot of riders ride with a camelback or some other kind of water bag, both because it holds more water and some people find that a little bit more convenient while they're riding. So that's an option. Also, in between each of the rest stops, so figure rest stops 15 to 20 miles, in between most of the rest stops, there'll also be a pit stop, and the pit stop will have refills for the water. So if you do end up with just one water bottle and it's empty at the halfway point, there more often than not will be a place to refill it.
I have a quick question. My name is Lou Koletsky. I'm from the hills of New Hampshire. First time going to Israel, first time on the ride, super excited. My question back to bike packing. What about if you have electronic shifting? There's a battery inside the frame of the bike, and I'm not sure you're supposed to check lithium ion batteries. Anybody consider that or run into issues there? Or have electronic shifting?
We've had people bring bikes with electronic shifts in the past. I haven't heard of anybody having to take out a battery, particularly if it's not easy to take out. But so I think it's a small battery, and I don't know that they consider that as such or even know the difference.
Yeah, it's usually a very tiny battery.
Yeah. People on e-bikes have had to ship by ground, I know. But
yes,
e-bikes cannot be checked as luggage. They are not. If you talk to someone who's brought an e-bike on a commercial flight, it basically means somebody messed up accepting it. They're not supposed to be allowed on commercial bikes. If you have a bike with a small battery, if I recall correctly, because I researched this some when we were researching e-bikes, if you can remove it and have it in carry on, you should. If you can't,
all right.
So can I have electronic shifting. So my battery's in the seat post. I just take the seat post off the bike because I take the seat off the bike, and no one knows that it's a battery. It's in the seat post. The wires are there. I disconnect the wires from the battery. I stuff them back down I tape them to the inside of the tube. No one knows that there's a battery.
Yep. Mine's not in the seat post. You have to take off the bottom bracket, the whole thing apart to get it out. But it'll stay in there. Not taking it out. That works.
Sounds like a plan.
It's not really an issue.
Awesome. Thank you.
Steve, I see your comment about day 3 Sofim riding on an unpaved surface. If you can send me whatever you saw or tell me what you think is unpaved, we'll clarify what's going on there, because that's, I don't think that's correct.
Just when you look at the itinerary on the website and you go to the bottom with the view, the horizontal view with the elevation, it shows like about 4 small white lines where that indicate unpaved surface.
We're on paved roads the whole time. There are some parts of the route that are on what we call farm roads that I don't know how they show on the maps, but they are paved.
Okay, thank you.
Or if they're not paved, they're very hard packed and able for road bikes to traverse.
Yeah, like going through that vineyard or whatever that thing was.
Exactly.
Okay, thanks.
I had a quick question about arriving at Ben Gurion with your bicycle. It was a little confusing when we exited the plane to know who to give the bike to.
The highest bidder. You give it to the highest bidder.
It was funny. It was just a random guy with a white van who didn't speak English very well.
And that's the right guy.
Yeah, but it made it there. It made it there fine. It was no problem. It was just maybe to let everybody know it's the same protocol.
So at the
time, experience with faith that I've ever had in Israel.
at times that a lot of riders are coming in, there's often somebody in the welcome area to sort of help you do that. But if not, you have a phone number. Yep, they show up in a white, unmarked white van, and we've yet to lose a bike.
Yeah,
that way.
Yeah, if your bike makes it as far as the van, it will make it to Jerusalem.
And it absolutely did.
All right, I see in the chat, there's a question. Is there anything we need to know for Israel entry in terms of COVID?
So Israel has COVID entry requirements. Your airline will have COVID entry requirements to let you on an international flight. Those are changing from time to time. Whatever they are today, they won't necessarily be 8 weeks from now, 7 weeks from now. We will send something out a few weeks before with the latest, but as international travelers and adults, you have a responsibility to check that out on your own with your airline. And we'll do the best to keep you informed, but things don't always change with lots of advance notice. We're asking people, we are bringing, between riders and crew and staff and everything, we're bringing 250 people together from 200 different destinations. We're asking everybody to be mature and careful in the days before the ride. We're asking you to do a self-test before you get on the plane. We're asking you to do a self-test before you show up in Jerusalem. And we're requiring you to bring, I believe we said it's 8 antigen tests with you. Because if there are some people that test positive, we may ask people to test, depending upon where it is, who you are, what's going on, etc. Masks are not required at all times. We will have some people that will want to wear masks all times indoors. We ask that you respect the people who want to do that. If there is an outbreak of some sort, we may require masks to be worn at certain places. We hope not to do that, but we don't know. So we're asking everyone to bring a high quality mask, not a cloth mask, but with at least one. And given people's tendency to lose things when they're traveling and in different places, maybe bring a few with you. So you have them, and anyone that does test positive will be immediately separated from the rest of the group, offered a quarantine hotel of some sort at the rider's expense, and follow whatever the then current rules are for how someone that tests positive should be treated. There's a whole COVID protocol up on the website. We're going to ask everybody to read it and sign it, or go online and affirm that you've read it sometime in the next few weeks. There's a lot of tough decisions for us to do to balance all the different issues that come up when some of that stuff happens.
And we're also asking everyone to upload their vaccine card. So if you're having trouble doing that on the forms portal, you could send me an email with a photo of your vaccine card.
Howie, could you provide just a few tips on luggage in terms of, how much and what type to bring and things not to do?
So sure, in terms of, a lot of people come before and stay after. And so what I'm going to tell you is not going to be relevant for that. In terms of on the ride, you really need very little in terms of clothing. Obviously, your bike clothes, generally people are in shorts and a t-shirt. Certainly, Jerusalem could be a little cool in the days we're in Jerusalem, but once we get out into the desert, it's people generally have a little nicer, some nicer shirt to wear on Shabbat, and maybe long pants, but pack light.
Yeah, it's worth keeping in mind, we move almost every day, and either you have to carry your suitcase or one of our couriers will carry your suitcase, but whoever it is, they're carrying them for, if it's not you, then they're carrying them for over 200 people. So lighter is better. There is actually a packing list on the website. We can forward the link around. It's not a required packing list, but it's built up from experience. So hopefully that'll help.
It could be cold a couple of the mornings. If you have a light riding jacket or if you have sleeves and you're sensitive to a little cool in the morning, you may want to bring that. You can just take them off and throw them in one of the vehicles and pick them up at the end of the day in the lost and found. I suggest that you make sure it's marked with your name if you want to do that.
The other thing is, Howie, I don't know if you agree with me or not, but it can be cool in the evening in Mitzvah Ramon, and it's not a bad idea to have a sweater or a wool hat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or a light jacket. Yeah.
David asks, is there a shuttle from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem that you're organizing for arrivals without bikes? We are not organizing a shuttle, but there is a train that you leave the airport and you like 2 minutes walk, you're at a train station, and you can take the train to Jerusalem. I believe the hotel is a 10-minute cab ride from the train station. So that might be the easiest way, or you can also just take a cab directly.
There are these things that they call a sherut, which is a shared cab, which generally they'll put 4 or 5 people in a cab together to Jerusalem from the airport. So that's another alternative that's more cost effective than a taxi and works pretty well. It's all organized there.
Yeah, outside of the airport, there's a taxi line with someone, assisting. So it should be pretty easy to do. Yeah.
And just for the avoidance of confusion, we do get your bike from the airport to Jerusalem. We just don't get you from the airport to Jerusalem. So be sure that if you're bringing a bike, you get that to the courier before you get on the train or the sherut or however you choose to go. You'll find that much easier than lugging your bike around Jerusalem and bringing it to our check-in hotel.
And just to mention that there isn't public transportation on Shabbat. So if you are landing during Shabbat hours, you'll probably just need to take a private taxi.
Ilana?
There's also, and this is particularly for alumni, leaving from Eilat on a Tuesday morning or whenever you're leaving Eilat, the Eilat airport has moved. It's now, instead of being a 5-minute cab ride, it's a 20-minute or a 25-minute cab ride north. So you have to leave time for that. And it's a little more expensive cab ride. So we'll set some things up so people can connect with each other and share cabs to the airport in Eilat.
Ilana?
Yes.
Bill Rosenbaum here, San Diego, alumni rider. How far in advance can we arrive and still have our bikes picked up at the airport? I'm coming in over a week early.
No problem.
I think that should be fine. Yeah, I would say a couple. Yeah.
You can get there next week if you want. It's no problem. We just need to know about it and coordinate. No problem.
If I'm coming a week early, I need to coordinate with somebody in advance?
Yes, it's a good idea to coordinate in advance. Ilana, we ask people for their flight arrangements. So we have your flight arrangements. So we will have told the the warehouse to be expecting a phone call because we have a rider coming in on Tuesday on flight, whatever.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
Bill, yeah, I owe you you and Ralph an email clarifying A Lot Hotels. So I will send that to you tomorrow. And I just want to say, for whoever hasn't filled out their forms, it's super important to our planning. So if you have if you want to bring your own bike, we'll know when to meet you at the airport. It's really important to fill out which riding group you anticipate being in so we could plan the housing. So whoever hasn't completed their forms, please do so.
We're also doing trying something new this year, using technology to become better communicators, using an app called WhatsApp. Those of you who are familiar with it, we're setting up a group. Those of you who aren't familiar with it, we ask you to download it and join the group. It's kind of a group text message that's a little easier to use than your standard text message. And it's the group that you as a rider won't be able to send messages to every other rider. It's just the administrator of the group can send messages. It can be very useful, especially in cases where stuff happens that is unexpected on the ride and we need to let people know sort of what's happening. So Ilana recently sent out an email, or I guess that email was from David and I, that had the link in it. If you have trouble and don't understand it, feel free to reach out to Ilana for help. And otherwise, get on it, and we're going to do a few test messages over the next couple of weeks.
Neil, I see that you asked about the name, contact information for the bike courier company. We'll be sending that out closer to the ride. So we could give you the name just if you want to look it up, but we'll be providing that information closer to the ride. How would you know the name of the company? I forgot.
No, but all the communication should be through us to the company. Yeah. No, riders shouldn't be trying to communicate directly with the company.
Yeah, we'll provide that info. Okay, we have a few minutes remaining. Any last burning questions? Yeah, let's speak up.
Barry, did I see your hand up? Matt Liebman, I see your hand up.
Yes. Sorry. Thank you, alumni rider. I had a question about the COVID protocols regarding all the food and rest stops. How are we handling all of that in terms of, multiple people grabbing food and things like that?
We generally do not have people grabbing food with their fingers. We have utensils. When we have open food, we have utensils for people to use. And then particularly with nuts and things like that we have out, we have bags that you can fill up. I don't think we're doing any at the rest stops, and other snacks at the rest stops are wrapped and closed. That's pretty much what we can do.
Thank you. And one last question. You mentioned about the testing beforehand. When we get on the plane and when we get into Jerusalem, all of that is the rapid antigen test. We don't have to do any PCR tests. We don't have to do these eMed tests or anything like that. Right. That's verified. It's an honor system for the rapid tests, basically?
Yes. Okay. Yes, the rapid antigen tests that you can buy at the drugstore, or your health plan may give them to you for free, that take 10 minutes or 15 minutes to do, that you do on your own.
Got it. Thank you.
But just to be clear, that's the ride requirements. If there's a PCR test or other tests required by the state or by the airline, check with them directly, because that'll be their requirement.
Hey, I just want to say on behalf of myself, thank you, David. Thank you, Howie. Hopefully we get to all get together in a couple of weeks and put all this crap in the rearview mirror.
Amen.
Absolutely.
Amen.
Thank you,
Yes,
guys.
thank you.
That sounds
Thank
great.
you.
Okay, good night, guys.
If anyone has any other questions that we didn't get to, feel free to stay on when we let everybody else go on time.
Thanks everyone for coming.
Thank you.
Just
Bye-bye.
like we
See everybody in
expect you to
Israel.
be on
Not
time.
bye, everybody. Bye.
Shana Tova.
Thank you.